This video is part of a two-part video series I'm making about the history of Yugoslavia. Before watching this one, I advise you to watch part 1 for the best experience. With that being said, let's get into the video. When you look at European conflict, you can see that the thing that caused the conflict was often authoritarian or had roots in an authoritarian past, such as the current modern war in Ukraine, which could be rooted back to the early beginnings of the Soviet Union and possibly even further to the Russian Empire. However, one area has had all the violence, all the bloodshed, and all of the authoritarian roots, and this area, in specific, is the Balkans. The Balkans have had many past authoritarian states rule over it, such as Austria-Hungary, the Ottomans, the Nazis, and for a brief period of time, even the Mongols. While all of these states, ethnicities will often migrate to the Balkans and eventually move out. However, a multitude of ethnicities have stayed, such as the Bosniaks, the Montenegrins, the Macedonians, and more notably, and the main characters of the story, the Croats and the Serbs. The Serbs originated from Eastern Germany. However, throughout the course of history, with empires such as the Romans coming and going, they eventually moved to the Balkans, spreading out to areas that we would call today Eastern Bosnia, Serbia, Kosovo, and Macedonia. The origins of the Croats are still relatively unknown, but evidence suggests that the Croats originated in northwest Iran and spoke a language similar to Iranian, but not the same. However, by the time that it was marked down in history books, it appeared to be a Slavic nation. Along with the Serbs moving to the Balkans, a large number moved to Northern Caucasia. However, that settlement is not talked about that much due to it being a little bit irrelevant. However, it still pops up in some modern conflicts today, such as the Chechen War. However, although they both originate from the Balkans, this would not change the ethnic tension that would brew from the start of the Yugoslav state. After Yugoslav state's creation, extremism already started brewing. The Ustasha would be formed in the 1920s following the declaration of a dictatorship in Yugoslavia. The Ustasha was a paramilitary group who advocated for the independence of Croatia, and they are in fact responsible for the assassination of King Alexander in Marseille. However, even after Belgrade gave concessions to Croatia, giving them moderate autonomy, with Belgrade only ruling over foreign policies and the military, the Ustasha still wasn't satisfied, as they felt like they were retracting Croatia's historical claims to Bosnia. However, they thought it was better than nothing. However, when the Nazis would steamroll into Yugoslavia, they would give Croatia the entirety of Bosnia. And, out of vengeance, the Croats did some of the worst things imaginable. The Croats would enact the 1 German, 10 Serbs policy, which meant that for every 1 German that died during World War II, that would be equal to 10 dead Serbs. And they would enforce this new policy with a vengeance. 2 million Serbs would die during this time period of 1941 to 1944, all at the hands of the Ustasha and the Nazis, and this will only be the beginning of the end. After the death of Tito, the foreign aid of both sides of the East and the West ceased, and the country went into full chaos. Around this time, everyone was looking for someone to blame. In Kosovo, it was the Albanians living in the area. The Kosovar Serbs believed that the Kosovar Albanians were pushing them out of jobs and their region, and after this, a counter-movement against this began. Following this, the president of Serbia, Ivan Stambolic, sent his right-hand man, Slobodan Milosevic, to quell the unrest. However, when he arrived, he only spoke what the Kosovar Serbs wanted to hear, and in doing so, creating himself a devoted following. In what would soon be called the anti-bureaucratic revolution, he used his support to force the governments of Vojvodina, Kosovo, and Montenegro to be replaced with his allies. Eventually, Stambolic was forced to resign in favor of Milosevic, who became president of Serbia in 1989. After putting his allies in control and awarding the autonomy of Kosovo, he then set up a voting bloc, which was to give more power directly to Serbia. This type of thing didn't sit well with Croatia nor Slovenia. Slovenian media then started portraying Milosevic as a fascist, in which then Milosevic cracked down on Slovenian media. This only helped to then start more resentment towards Belgrade, and more specifically, Serbia. Milosevic then attempted to use the Kosovar Serbs to try and depose Slovenia's President Milan Kukan, after which Croatia then publicly announced their support for Slovenia, refusing passage for the protesters. Not long after this, the 14th Congress was held, with all the republics coming together to vote on whether each state should gain more autonomy or they should build a stronger sense of brotherhood and unity. However, not too long after this, the Slovenian delegates left. Then, following them, Bosnia and Croatia left too. There was no more unity. After each republic had the first ever free elections, the nationalist parties defeated the communist ones in Macedonia, Slovenia, Bosnia, and Croatia. In Croatia, the new president Franjo Tudjman came into power under the pledge to protect Croatia from Serbia, followed by his nationalistic sentiment to embrace the checkered flag, which brought back painful memories of the genocide that had scarred many Serbian families. However, the Croatian Serbs refused to let the genocide happen again, and so they took up arms and rose up in Cordennin in August, securing small arms and barricading roads. They demanded that if Croatia were to secede, the Serbian majority areas, or as they called it, the Republic of Serbian Krajina, would not cede. However, Borislav Jovic, now head of the Yugoslav presidency, was ready to offer support to the Croatian Serbs' concerns. Tudjman, however, would not accept this, and had helicopters dispatched to Cordennin, ready to put down the rebellion. However, Jovic showed his hand when he sent 2 Yugoslav fighter jets and intercepted the helicopters and forced them to return to base. Serbia's influence had now controlled the army, so now Tudjman had to find his own way to fight. Soon, Hungarian arms started to be smuggled into Croatia, and at the same time, the Slovenes had a referendum, asking the people if they desired independence. The people answered yes. The results of the referendum, and soon in 1991, when Croatia was caught smuggling Hungarian arms, the army desperately asked Jovic to enact the state of emergency. The Croatian representative, Stjepan Mesic, strongly debated the army and Jovic, accusing the two of attempting to create a greater Serbia, while the army head insisted that foreign powers were conspiring to destroy Yugoslavia. Regardless if it was true or not, this would mean war. The vote was placed in a Bosnian representative's hands. After some considerable thinking, it was rejected. However, after Jovic's term had ended in May and it was time for Mesic to take power, he was blocked and the title offered to another Milosevic loyalist. The Croatians responded in an independence referendum that won in a landslide, most likely because the Croatian Serbs didn't even bother showing up to vote. On June 25, 1991, both Slovenia and Croatia declared independence, beginning the very violent government collapse of Yugoslavia. The fighting in Croatia had been going on for some time, but with the official war declarations, the Yugoslav People's Army saw fit to involve themselves. They moved an army to Slovenia's border, which immediately prompted a reaction from the Slovenes. The Slovenian territorial defense prepared resistance on the border checkpoints and important roads, repelling the Yugoslav force. A short war with little casualties, the conflict would be named the 10-Day War. Although Tudjman's entire ordeal is that he'd defend every inch of Croatia, despite this, the rebels actually got all of Serbian majority Croatia, then some, and then some more. Yugoslavia gave them their support as well, giving the rebels equipment and artillery. Later, the YPA arrived at the border as peacekeepers. Peacekeepers that will allow the rebels to push onward and take Vukovar in August. Things looked very bleak for Yugoslavia. So bleak that Macedonia passed a referendum, and then just left. After that, the rebels advanced and fully took Vukovar, and anyone who resisted was subsequently massacred. By the dawn of 1992, a UN ceasefire would put an end to the pain. However, a much larger conflict was brewing. Among all the republics of Yugoslavia, one of the most diverse was the Republic of Bosnia. It consisted of Croats, Serbs, and by a slim majority, Bosniak Muslims. As Yugoslavia fell, Bosnia found itself divided among these ethnic lines. When talks of separation began in 1991, the Bosnian Serb Radovan Karadzic issued a stern warning to Parliament, a warning of a war they would not win, a war that would see Bosniak extinction. However, the Bosnian Serbs had their own referendum, and by January had their own state in 1992, the Republic of Srpska. Its goal was to remain in a common state with Serbia and Montenegro. Bosnia regarded that referendum as unconstitutional and had another that the Serbs boycotted. It passed, but with only a 63% turnout. The Downfall of Yugoslavia was originally meant to be one big video. After seeing how long this video is, I decided to split the fall into 2 parts. The second part should come out in about 1 month. This video would not have been possible without the contributions of many talented artists, such as Hot Dog for making these wonderful frames, Go to Canada for making these questionable frames, piss on compliments, and the Shed Mapping for making these amazing frames. Extra thank you to Chappelle Productions who are helping out with the project, making these frames, and overall being a really good friend. Anyways, this is Cordennin. Until next time, touch some grass. Oh, by the way, editors note, one more thing. Somewhere in this video, there's a code for 2 months Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. Go and find it. Later.